No, there's no arguing that it's big. It's a big vehicle. Got the nice fancy Ford rims, 4-door, big old luggage rack. We'll peek inside here. Baby's got a lot of room. Got 3 rows of seats if you want. This one's set up with them down, and if you roll the middle ones back, you got all kinds of space for hauling stuff. This baby can tow 9,200 pounds. It can tow a lot. Check under the hood. Under the hood, it's got a big old V8 engine, plenty of power. Engine puts out 300 horsepower, and it's mated to a very reliable 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, generally, the automatic transmissions are the first thing to go, but most of my customers get between 150 and 200,000 miles out of the original transmission. If they drive them hard, then I just tell them, put a Ford factory rebuilt transmission in, and it'll probably last just as long the second time. Now, it is a big old vehicle. It gets 12 in the city and 18 on the highway. They're gas hogs. There's no arguing that. It's a big, heavy vehicle. They're not going to get great gas mileage. That's not what you buy an Expedition for. You buy it for size. And at least in this case, pretty good reliability. Let's check out the odometer. It's got 156,959.4 miles on it. And as you can see, he's been driving it very conservatively. He's getting 19.5 miles per gallon, which is about the best I've ever seen in one of these. And like I said, it's a very reliable 6-speed automatic transmission with an overdrive. Seats are comfortable. Hey, you know, they're 14 years old. They're still in decent shape. And as we go out and check the back seat, plenty of room in the back seat. And you can see it's got AC controls for the back too. Vents in the roof, in the back. It's a well air-conditioned vehicle. This one's even got the fancy DVD player and everything built into it. Showing its age these days, who watches DVDs, but if you got some old ones, stick them in and let the kids watch them. And this particular one is rear-wheel drive only. Makes more sense. If you don't need all-wheel drive, don't add it to a vehicle like this. More things to break, more weight, worse gas mileage, you pay more for them in the beginning when you buy them. This is plenty capable with rear-wheel drive. As you can see back here, got a big old rear end. Heavy duty, independent suspension. Threw the spare tire back here so you got more space in the vehicle. Smart move. And a nice solid frame. Of course, they don't rust here in Texas unless you live by the ocean. So even though the thing is old, whistle clean. Now originally this was a $38,000 car. Customer just bought it for $7 grand. Now you might think that's a lot of money for a used vehicle, but when you consider originally $31,000 more, $7 grand really isn't all that bad. We'll close the hood and see how it rides. Start it up. Starts right up. We'll turn the AC on because it's hot as Hades here. Now it is a big beast that sits high up in the air. You certainly feel safe in this thing. Still corners quite smoothly, and even with all this mileage, it still rides quite well. And that's all with the original shock absorb system on it too. That's got a big engine, so let's see how it takes off. It's got good pickup. You can hear the engine. Very smooth shifting. A lot of miles. Still runs quite well. Feels very stable. It's definitely a vehicle you can feel safe in. As long as you don't mind the low gas mileage, it can be a great vehicle. Got 4-wheel disc brakes. You want to stop, there's no problem with that. Hit them and it stops. On a dime. Now everything seems okay, but we're going to do the ultimate test. We're going to plug in my big scan tool. See how it's doing electronically and all the electronic mechanical parts. Get a lot of information out of this. We'll just plug in the business end here, stick it on forward. Oh, we got all the information, yes. And now once it pops up, we'll do the diagnosis. We'll auto scan, not scanning everything. Look to the data, almost everything passes. It's got a problem with the rear entertainment module, but I mean really, who cares about that? Everybody's got their own phones and stuff anyways. That's an antique dinosaur thing. All the electronic stuff you care about is fine. Pretty amazing when you think of all the complex electronics on this vehicle. The only little problem is with the rear entertainment module. If this had been a BMW or a Mercedes of the same age, it'd probably have 26 or 47 different codes popping up. Now we're going to look at live data and get a whole bunch of information. There's all kinds of information. I'm going to start scanning through it. Everything so far is totally normal. There's a lot of information here. It may not mean much to you, but it means a lot to me. These are also color coded. If there's a problem, it won't be black. It'll be orange or red. They're all black, and they're all, so far, in good shape for a car that's got almost 157,000 miles on it. No oranges, no reds, everything's black. You can see in a modern car, there's an awful lot of information that we mechanics can check out. You can't hide from this if somebody's buying a used vehicle. And as we look, the long-term fuel trim on each side, it's subtracting 3% on one and almost 3% on the other. Pretty normal when you're talking about a car this old. It's subtracting a little bit of fuel. You could probably run some fuel injector cleaner through it to make it a little more perfect, but that's not bad for a car with this many miles on it. You can see, look how short term, it's even less. It's only subtracting a tiny bit and sometimes adding a little. It's still in excellent shape for its mileage. Now, it was easy for my customer to tell that it was external and the inside upholstery was in excellent shape, but now we know the internals are in really good shape too. And paying $7,000 instead of $38,000 sounds like a deal to me. It runs like a dream. Shifts like a dream, brakes like a dream, has freezing cold air conditioning. As long as you don't mind lower gas mileage, it's a very good used vehicle to buy. As long as you have a guy like Scotty checking it out to make sure it doesn't have any problems. Can't trust anybody selling used vehicles, but as this one shows, there are still some good ones out there used at a good price. And as the true saying often goes, they don't make them like they used to. This is older, as far as I'm concerned. They made them better back then too. This doesn't have gasoline direct injection. This doesn't have turbochargers. This doesn't have fancy 10-speed automatic transmission. This has tried and true technology, and in this case, it's holding up quite well. 2009 Kia Forte. He had to buy it used because someone stole his Camry. Yes, people do steal them. He even has a video from the parking lot of these guys going, and they stole both his Camry and his wife's Honda Civic right next to each other. They had little videos of them fooling around, and they drove both cars out. So he had to buy something, and he bought this. And now he's wondering, should he keep this or not? Well, I did the usual scan tool, and the only codes it really had that were hard were for anti-lock brake system wasn't working right because the wheel speed sensors weren't functioning. 3 of the 4 were bad, so that, not a reason to get rid of a car. Now, since there were no codes, check engine light's not on, and other than the stupid codes for the wheel speed sensors, start's kind of odd, so let's start by checking the battery on the starter. Get it on the positive terminal tight and the negative terminal tight. And in this case, 600 cold cranking amps. So we'll go to the machine. We'll set in vehicle battery test, top post, regular, cold cranking. And it's 600, so we'll bump it down to 600. You gotta check them correctly. There we go, 600, and enter. Says there's a surface charge detected, so we'll turn on the headlights. Okay, they're on. The machine knows they're on, now it says turn them off. So we'll turn them off. Retesting it, definitely above 32. I'm in short sleeve shorts, and the result is the battery's good, but it needs to be recharged. Now, this often happens in vehicles that sit too much, but we're going to test the alternator now, make sure it's not the problem. So we'll get back here, start engine, we'll start her up. It says the cranking voltage is normal, means the starter's okay. See, cranking voltage normal, starter's okay. So now we press enter again, and it's showing that it's charging 14.27 volts, which is pretty good, but we need to do more. So now we're gonna rev the engine like it says. Then press enter. Now it says put the loads on, so we'll put that on, we'll put the blower on. And we'll start it again. We'll rev it up again. And we'll push enter and see what happens. Analyzing data. It's normal. So I figured out a bunch of stuff now. The battery needs recharging, it's low. But the alternator's putting out the right power. For some reason, the battery's just not fully charged. I'm assuming the customer isn't driving it enough and it sits awful long time. You can see, you look at the paint, it's all dirty, has bird poop on it, so it probably sits a lot. And in that case, if you have a car like this, get yourself a battery charger. You know, weekend once in a while, plug it in and give it a full charge, because cars do need to be recharged a lot, and if you don't use them all the time, the battery will show low and you can get problems from that. But of course, there could be a battery drain that's draining the battery. So I'm going to get my clamp on meter. We're going to turn it on to the small setting here, and then we look at it. You notice it says AC. So what we have to do is we have to select here. Now it's DC, because we want to measure DC. Right here, we have to zero it. Now it's 0, and we'll clamp it on and see what kind of a drain it has. These machines are so accurate, they pick up stray stuff. So, in the area you're working, once you put it to DC, you have to zero it so you get a true reading. Then when you clamp it on, you'll see how much drain exists. And in this case, it's 0.008, which isn't much. And that's very little for a modern car. A normal drain can be up to 0.05. And this is way below that. It didn't even make to the 0.01. It's 0.008. So it's very little drain. So there's not a drain. I'm assuming he just doesn't drive it enough and the battery needs to be charged up. My Celica's turned into a car like that. I don't use it that much anymore. I put the battery charger on it 2 or 3 times a year to charge it up good, and then it starts fine. And then when it doesn't, I just recharge it because I know I'm not driving that much. So these meters are great for finding drain. Just remember, you can see it's got a reading now. Always zero it before you do the reading in the area. Otherwise, see, even in the area here, this stuff. There we go. Now it's zeroing. But you move it around. It picks up stray electricity from all over the place. So we'll continue to check stuff. And look at this. It still has a transmission dipstick. I love this. Most cars don't have them anymore. This one does. That's a plus. We'll check the engine oil. It's full. Smells like oil, doesn't smell like gasoline. From diluted gasoline means the engine's in decent shape. So we'll close the hood, take it for a spin. We'll see how she starts up. Starts up pretty good. We'll back her up. A few odd noises here and there, typical for an older Kia. Now it's only got 74,733 miles on it. Now we'll see how it accelerates. Well, we can't do it right now. There's some idiot in the road decides to block the road. What a moron. Here we go. Makes a lot of noise like a Kia. Not great acceleration, but the transmission feels smooth enough for one of these. And as we hit bumps, you can feel the bumps, but no more than usual for one of these things. They're not that smooth riding, but it's not losing steering control, and it rides normal for one of these things. Now, I feel the main problem the customer has with this car is he had his Camry stolen, and he replaced it with this. Now, even though the Camry was 8 years older than this, it rode 100% better, smoother transmission, more power. He was just in a hurry because his cars are stolen and he had to get a car. For one of these Kias, this one is actually in very good shape. You just have to understand what you're getting when you're buying one of these. And sure, this thing has 4 doors like the Camry, but that's about the only real similarity. Rides a little bit rough. There's nothing wrong with the car as a transportation car. It's nothing like the Camry, but he's got it. He might as well just take care of it. It's an Econobox car, a good enough Econobox car. Now, I mean, if you're going from a Camry to this, sure, you're not going to be satisfied. The only thing you might be satisfied with is the gas mileage, that it didn't cost that much to buy. You're not going to be overly satisfied because the Camry is a nice, luxurious ride. These things aren't. That isn't the car's problem. That's that you might expect too much from one of these cars. Don't. You want cheap, relatively reliable transportation. It's only got 70-something thousand miles. It's a perfectly good car for that. Just don't expect a smooth ride, smooth shifting, and better handling. That's not going to happen in one of these things. We're going to give you the whole rundown on Scions now. This is a 2011 Scion TC. Now, it's been through the washing machine. The man who owns it drives like a maniac, gets road rage all the time. And the only one problem it had was the engine blew up. But you can't blame the car. He got road rage in it going 80 miles an hour, and he inadvertently downshifted into first gear. Of course, the engine blew up. They can't rev that high. So we had to put a used engine in, but it runs great now. Now, they don't make Scions anymore. A lot of people say, oh, you don't make a car anymore. It's a bad car, don't buy it. Completely wrong in the case of Scion. Toyota just decided, for some bizarre reason, that young people don't like Toyota, so we'll make their own brand and call them Scion. Now, I understood why they made Lexus, because most people are like, oh, who's going to pay $50,000, $60,000 for a Toyota, so we'll make fancy ones and call them Lexus. That I understand. But why would you want to low brand a Toyota to sell it to young people and call it Scion? It just didn't make any sense to me. But they did, and Toyota marketed the heck out of them years ago. You could see music stores, there'd be a bunch of young people there, and they have music blaring, giving them free Scion test rides and stuff. They marketed the heck out of them. And they are actually a pretty good car. Take the Scion TC, for example. It originally was a $19,000 car. It's got a nice 6-speed transmission, a zippy 4-cylinder Toyota engine. For that price, you were really getting your money's worth. And at that price, you were even getting these 18-inch wheels with the fancy alloy wheels on them. These things were a real bargain. Check under the hood. Metal. This isn't a plastic Hulk like the new ones. For your money, you actually got a metal engine set up. It's all metal, it's not plastic junk. Now you can see, this does have junkyard writing because this is a used engine. As I said, you can't blame the car, that was the driver. Road rage to go 80 miles an hour and downshift into first gear. You can do that in just about any car and it's gonna blow the engine up. Didn't hurt the transmission though, it still works perfectly fine. And of course this is a sport version. A lot of people bought those boxy Scions if they didn't mind a boxy vehicle. They were quick little vehicles too. I still don't understand why Toyota gave them a different name. I mean, didn't sell them as Toyotas, because that's what they're doing now. They no longer make Scions, but they make the same cars, they just call them Toyotas instead. So even though they don't make them anymore, it's no problem getting parts for these things. They're all Toyota parts. They're not all that expensive. These are fun cars to drive around in. Why oh why they decided to make a different brand name for them and then cut it out is beyond me. But obviously it has to do with sales. 2006 was the high point of Scions. They sold over 173,000 in the United States. But 2016, they only sold 12,000. The numbers just weren't there, so they decided to ditch the whole Scion experiment. So these Scions are part of a relatively rare phenomenon. A solid, well-built vehicle that failed. People didn't buy enough of them. Now, some of it just has to do with it's a two-door sedan. Two-door sedans in the United States are becoming less and less popular. Everyone wants an SUV with 4 doors and lots of space. That's one reason they went out. And this particular one is a 6-speed standard transmission. 93% of Americans don't even drive standards anymore. So there's a market that they're not selling to. As you can see inside, they're pretty snazzy. Got some nice chrome, black, nice instrument panel. Even got the face mask here. It's got the dual sunroof set up on it. And when we check the back, as you can see, it's a 2-door, but there's a reasonable amount of room in the back. It's not bad at all. And we go to the back, you can see it's got a pretty serious trunk. It's a hatch. The seats can move down. You can get a lot of room in these things. Once you empty all that stuff out and put them down, you can carry plywood, whatever you want. They're very utilitarian for a hatchback. Now this particular one's got 180 horsepower and hooked up to a 6-speed standard. It's really quick. If you were insane enough, they offered a TRD supercharger kit that would bump it all close to 300 horsepower. If you wanted to soup them up, you could soup them up, but they're plenty fast the way they are. They're not slow cars. They handle quite well. As I say, my customer that owns this gets road rage, is a little too wild, you know. He also has a Harley Davidson that he drives, so he's a little bit on the wild side. But this thing, amazingly enough, has held up. He had a Honda before he had this, and the Honda didn't hold up as well as this. The transmission was going out on the Honda because it couldn't take his driving. This transmission has no problems at all, even though he drives like a maniac. As you can see, it's a very quiet car just sitting here, and we'll see how it takes off. It's got some power to it. You can feel the bumps, but it's a sports car. This is a luxury limousine. It's made to handle, and those big 18-inch wheels hold the road well, but they're not made for a smooth ride. And as usual, ice cold air conditioning, even though it's old. So as you can see, it's actually a pretty high performance little car. If you ask me, they pretty much made a perfect little coupe. And for 19,000 bucks, that isn't much scratch. Take a Honda Civic Type R, great little race car. Hey, you're gonna pay 40-something grand for those things. Not $19,000 when they were brand new. And even though this thing's 10 years old, it's still real stylish. It's not something that goes out of style. It's a nice looking car. It's very aerodynamic. They're actually very handy cars. But with everybody having this big excitement for SUVs these days, a lot of sedans and coupes, they're just not making anymore. Honda just said that they're not going to be making their Civic sedan anymore. They look at what they're selling, make what they sell. The ones that don't sell well, they just drop them. Toyota just decided to drop the entire line of Scion. They still make the same basic vehicles, they just give them a different name. Toyota had such a good reputation. I can understand American car manufacturers like Dodge. They don't make Dodge Rams anymore. They make Rams. They have their own name. They want to distance themselves from Fiat Chrysler as much as possible. Why would you want to distance yourself from Toyota when you're selling quality cars? Especially to young people. They knew Toyotas were good. They grew up with that. Why would you make something else? I don't know. Somebody had a little brain fart going on there. And I guess if you look at it, Toyota's never really been a sports car company. They make money selling regular cars, and with their Lexus division, luxury cars and SUVs to people. They were never a real sports car company. Look at their Supras now. They're just rebadged BMWs. Their other sports cars, they're just rebadged Subarus made by Subaru. That's not in their business. And I guess they just decided, they don't really need to make this little Scion sports car anymore. But they're great cars. If you can find a good used one and get a good price on one, hey, that could be a killer of a deal. And this one is a 6-speed standard. And since 90-something% of Americans drive automatics, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the automatics. They are extremely dependable transmissions that they put in the automatic Scions. I have customers who have 350,000 miles with the original automatic transmission in a Scion, and they still shift perfectly fine, and the only thing they did was change the fluid every 50-60,000 miles. They are low maintenance cars, just like Toyotas. And as I said, even if you're gonna buy a used one and they don't make them anymore, there's no problem getting parts for them. It's not like you're buying a Yugo and you can't get parts for it. You know, it's a Toyota. Plenty of parts are interchangeable. And there's such an aftermarket too for them. You can go to places like AutoZone, get brake pads. That's what I'm doing now, putting brake pads on. Where did they come from? AutoZone. You know, I mean, you can get parts cheaply enough for these that work perfectly fine. Don't worry about unavailability of parts or Scions, because they're still readily available. So now you know the truth about Scions. You can't buy a new one because they don't make them anymore. But if you're looking at a good used one, it could be a fantastic deal, because if they can go 300,000-400,000 miles, maybe you can get one with 120,000 miles for a couple of grand or something. Hey, that would be a fantastic deal. That'd be as good as my wife's $3,000 Lexus that I bought. Don't be fooled by they don't make them anymore. Didn't mean they were bad cars. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.